Shall we begin? The unseeing force, the blind force driving nature, becomes more aware through the coming of a mediating light, a light which brings more consciousness from above, which helps that unseeing force to read her works, to find out, to become more conscious of what she has done. So I'll read on from there. But all was still a mobile ignorance. Still, knowledge could not come and firmly grasp this huge invention seen as a universe. A specialist of logic's hard machine imposed its rigid artifice on the soul. An aid of the inventor intellect, it cut truth into manageable bits that each might have his ration of thought food. Then new-built truth's slain body by its art. A robot, exact and serviceable and false, displaced the spirit's finer view of things. A polished engine did the work of a god. None the true body found. Its soul seemed dead. None had the inner look which sees truth's whole. All glorified the glittering substitute. Then, from the secret heights, a wave swept down, a brilliant chaos of rebel light arose. It looked above and saw the dazzling peaks. It looked within and woke the sleeping god. Imagination called her shining squads that venture into undiscovered scenes where all the marvels lurk none yet has known. Lifting her beautiful and miraculous head, she conspired with inspiration's sister brood to fill thought's skies with glimmering nebulae. A bright error fringed the mystery altar's frieze. Darkness grew nurse to wisdom's occult sun. Myth suckled knowledge with her lustrous milk. The infant passed from dim to radiant breasts. Thus worked the power upon the growing world. Its subtle craft withheld the full-orbed blaze, cherished the soul's childhood, and on fictions fed, far richer in their sweet and nectarous sap, nourishing its immature divinity, than the staple or dry straw of reason's tilth, its heaped fodder of innumerable facts, plebeian fare, on which today we thrive. Thus streamed down from the realm of early light ethereal thinkings into matter's world. Its gold-horned herds trooped into earth's cave heart. Its morning rays illume our twilight's eyes. Its young formations move the mind of earth to labor and to dream and new create, to feel beauty's touch and know the world and self. The golden child began to think and see. The poet is introducing us to the first developments of mental consciousness. This is inspired by a ray of light coming from above. And that ray of light gives its sanction, it endorses the right of matter to think, that our physical brains can begin to develop the capacity to think and to know. Will you read, Kavita?
But all was still a mobile ignorance. Still knowledge could not come and firmly grasp. This huge invention seen as a universe, a specialist of logic's hard machine, imposed its rigid artifice on the soul, an aid of the inventor intellect. It cut truth into manageable bits, that each might have his ration of thoughtful. The new way truths slain body by its art, a robot exact and serviceable and forms, displays the spirit's finer view of things, a polished engine with the work of God.
So some kind of consciousness has arisen, so that nature force, at first blind, now begins to observe and understand the work that she's doing in the world. Even nature begins to dream that she is human. We human beings, our human consciousness, as like a dream of that force. But still, this is an early stage. It's a mobile ignorance, something moving. It's not real knowledge. Still, knowledge couldn't grasp this huge invention that we observe as the universe. It seems as if the first development is a kind of logic, a kind of step-by-step reasoning. But the poet says that this is an imposition on the soul. This is not true knowledge. This is something which is an aid, a supporter of the intellect, which is one aspect of our thought mind. And this capacity is like part of the analytic mind. It cut truth up into little manageable bits, so that everybody can get a little bit of the truth, or his ration of thought food. People could have small perceptions. But in that cutting truth into bits, it destroys the truth. And it has to put it back together again. It has to new build truth's slain body by its art, by an artificial, analytic, mental construction. It's like a machine, a robot. It does its work very exactly. It's even useful in a way, serviceable, but it's false. It doesn't have anything to do with the truth. And it is displacing the spirit's view of things, which is much finer and subtler. So this robot, this intellect, is a polished engine. It's doing the work that the divine mind should do, but no individuals find the true body of the truth. Even the soul of truth seems to be dead in this mechanical universe. There seem to be no beings who have the inner look which sees truth's whole. Instead, everybody's admiring and appreciating the substitute. We have a proverb that all that glitters is not gold. Just because it shines brightly, it does, or seems to shine brightly, it doesn't mean that it's something precious and true. But then there's a new movement. Will you read, Kamala?
Then, from the secret eyes, a wave swept down. A brilliant chaos of river light arose. It looked above and saw the dazzling heats. It looked within and waked the sleeping God. Imagination called her shining
Squads, yeah. Groups of soldiers.
that venture into undiscovered sense, where all the marvelous lurk, none it has known. Lifting her beautiful and miraculous head, she conspired with inspiration's sister brood to fill dark skies with clumbering nebula. A brighter fringe the mystery altars freeze. wisdom's occult sun, mid supposed knowledge with her lustrous milk. The infant passed from dim to radiant grasp.
Thank you. So something from the secret heights, a wave swept down. It's a wave of light. It says of rebel light, as if this light is not obeying the rules that have applied so far, but it's very brilliant. Although it's chaotic and disorder, it's full of light, that wave. And in that wave, there's a consciousness that looks above, that looks up to the dazzling peaks, the higher levels of consciousness. And it also looks within and wakes up the sleeping God, the divinity who is still sleeping there. Perhaps this is mind itself. How does this happen? This is done by imagination. There are several places in the poem where Sri Aurobindo speaks of the importance of the power of imagination, how very important and effective it is in helping things to develop, truth to develop. So here it is, a picture of imagination like a great power coming with her wave of light. She has shining armies, shining squads, groups of people beings who obey her. And she sends them to explore undiscovered scenes, things that have never been seen and understood before. That's one of the things that imagination can do. It can imagine new things. So she sends her squads who venture into these undiscovered scenes, things that haven't yet been discovered, but there all the marvels are lurking, they're hiding, all the marvels that nobody has yet become aware of. So the power of imagination, she lifts up, Sri Aurobindo says, her beautiful and miraculous head, and she conspires with somebody else, with a sister, with inspiration's sister brood. So there's her sister imagination, who has also many, many children and powers to serve her. So with these two goddesses together, imagination and inspiration together, they fill the skies of thought with glimmering nebulae. Nebulae are clouds of stars in outer space. So she's filling the possibility of thought with all this wonderful glimmering light. And as a result, something appears which is error, it is not truth, and yet it is bright, and it's giving a kind of halo, a fringe around this altar of mystery of this whole process of development. So as a result, what had been darkness gives rise to, becomes the nurse of a hidden sun, the hidden sun of wisdom. The poet says that this wisdom is myth. If we look back into the history of human consciousness, there's been a time when early humanity has conceived and shared wonderful stories, meaningful stories, stories that hint at true knowledge. And in all the ancient languages, these myths, these meaningful stories are there. So he says this form of myth, it's nourishing the beginnings of mind. Myth suckled knowledge with her lustrous milk, her shining, nourishing food that she gives. So this infant consciousness, this infant mind is passed on from one nurse to another, from this darkness to radiant breasts. Knowledge gets fed by a greater light. Leila, would you read?
Thus worked the power upon the growing world. Its subtle craft withheld the full-orbed blaze, cherished the soul's childhood, and on fiction fed, far richer in their sweet and nectarous sac, nourishing its immature divinity, than the stubble or dry straw of reason's still. It's heaped fodder of innumerable facts, plebeian fare on which today we thrive. Thus streamed down from the realm of the light, ethereal thinkings into matter's world. Its gold-horned herds drooped into earth's gay heart. Its morning rays illume our twilight's eyes. Its young formations move the mind of earth to labor and to dream and new create, to feel beauty's touch and know the world and self. The golden child began to think and see.
So this golden child, this growing infant of truth consciousness. There's this power of light is working upon the growing world. But at first it holds back the full light, the full-orbed blaze of wisdom's sun. It's as if that power enjoys the childhood of the soul and sees it gradually growing. It cherishes the soul's childhood and feeds the soul on fictions. Fictions as opposed to truth. These are stories. But that's what we feed young children on, perhaps. Beautiful stories that feed their imagination and give them deep perceptions. So this power is feeding the soul on fictions. He says that these fictions, these stories, which it is feeding the soul on are so much richer than our reason, the way we think these days. Those fictions are far richer in their sweet and nectarous sap. The sap is the lifeblood of the plant. This sap is a nourishing food for the soul, much more nourishing than the food that reason produces. Here this word tilth, it means what the farmer has grown. He has tilled the ground and the plants come up. But the tilth of reason is not very nourishing and not very delicious. It's like dry straw or some kind of staple food you just eat every day, but it's not very interesting. He even says it's a heaped fodder. Fodder is food that you give to animals. The fodder of innumerable facts. That's what we fill our reason with, feed our reason with. He says that's plebeian fare. That's not for gods. That's for just very, very ordinary people. But he says, today we human beings, we thrive on that ordinary fodder, that plebeian food. So he says, through the work of this power, there streamed down from the realm of early light, not yet the full highest light, but still there are rays pouring down. They are ethereal thinkings. Something that's ethereal is something that is very fine and insubstantial, coming down into our world of matter. It comes down in the form of cattle, of cows, the Vedic cows with their golden horns, herds of them bringing light, trooping down. And they troop into the cave, into the deep cave of the subconscious and the inconscient. They get hidden there for some time until they get rescued and brought out into the light. At the morning rays of this realm of early light light up our eyes of twilight, our eyes which see some kind of dim, misty, half-darkness. The young formations of that early thought, of that mythical way of looking at things, move the mind of earth to labor, to labor perhaps in the way of ploughing a field so that things will grow, to labor and to dream and new create with new imaginations and new inspirations. So the soul begins to feel beauty's touch, begins to have some knowledge of the world and some knowledge of the self, of its true inner being. So in this way, the golden child, the Hiranyagarbha, the golden embryo, begins to think and see. A new consciousness emerges, or emerged. Anybody would like to ask anything about this suggestive passage? It's full of suggestive imagery. So I'll read a little further. Asvapati is seeing these realms, no? And he realizes that in those bright realms, the realms of early light, are mind's first forward steps. Ignorant of all, but eager to know all, its curious, slow inquiry there begins in those bright realms. Ever its searching grasps at shapes around, ever it hopes to find out greater things. Ardent and golden gleamed with sunrise fires, alert it lives upon invention's verge. Yet all it does is on an infant scale, as if the cosmos were a nursery game, mind, life, the playthings of a Titan's babe. As one it works who builds a mimic fort, miraculously stable for a while, made of the sands upon a bank of time, mid an occult eternity's shoreless sea. First forward steps of mind. And then he says it's like building a sand castle, which miraculously lasts for a little while. It's made of the sands upon a bank of time, but all around is this occult, mysterious eternity, this shoreless sea, this sea of infinity. A small, keen instrument the great puissance chose. An arduous pastime passionately pursues. To teach the ignorance is her difficult charge. Her thought starts from an original, nescient void, and what she teaches, she herself must learn, arousing knowledge from its sleepy lair. For knowledge comes not to us as a guest called into our chamber from the outer world, a friend and inmate of our secret self. It hid behind our minds and fell asleep and slowly wakes beneath the blows of life. The mighty demon lies unshaped within. To evoke, to give it form, is nature's task. All was a chaos of the true and false. Mind soared amid deep mists of nescience. It looked within itself, but saw not God. A material interim diplomacy denied the truth that transient truths might live, and hid the deity in creed and guess, that the world ignorance might grow slowly wise. But all was still a mobile ignorance. Still knowledge could not come and firmly grasp this huge invention seen as a universe. A specialist of logic's hard machine imposed its rigid artifice on the soul. An aid of the inventor intellect, it cut truth into manageable bits, that each might have his ration of thought food. Then new-built truth's slain body by its art. A robot exact and serviceable and false displaced the spirit's finer view of things. A polished engine did the work of a god. None the true body found. Its soul seemed dead. None had the inner look which sees truth's whole. All glorified the glittering substitute. Then, from the secret heights, a wave swept down. A brilliant chaos of rebel light arose. It looked above and saw the dazzling peaks. It looked within and woke the sleeping God. Imagination called her shining squads that venture into undiscovered scenes where all the marvels lurk none yet has known. Lifting her beautiful and miraculous head, she conspired with inspiration's sister brood to fill thought's skies with glimmering nebulae. A bright error fringed the mystery altar's frieze. Darkness grew nurse to wisdom's occult sun. Myth suckled knowledge with her lustrous milk. The infant passed from dim to radiant breasts. Thus worked the power upon the growing world. Its subtle craft withheld the full-orbed blaze, cherished the soul's childhood, and on fictions fed far richer in their sweet and nectarous sap, nourishing its immature divinity, than the staple or dry straw of reason's tilth, its heaped fodder of innumerable facts, plebeian fare on which today we thrive. Thus streamed down from the realm of early light ethereal thinkings into matter's world. Its gold-horned herds trooped into earth's cave heart. Its morning rays illume our twilight's eyes. Its young formations move the mind of earth to labor and to dream and new create, to feel beauty's touch and know the world and self. The golden child began to think and see.